Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1143, 1143, Wednesday, May the 27th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, of course it is Wednesday, and of course you know what happens on Wednesday. I take out the trash and I have some chicken. Now, what I don't know is because of the holiday, are they going to do trash pickup on Wednesday or Thursday? See, I don't know. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you put it out there, it sits out there for a full day, the animals get into it, drag it all across the lawn. Who knows what's going to happen? One thing for sure is going to happen. I'll be having chicken. Now, let's move on to the news of the day, of which there's some pretty juicy stuff. So, let's go ahead and get into it now. So, I guess most of you have heard by now that the social justice warrior resistance judge Sullivan, Emmett Sullivan, hooked up Jimmy the Weasel Comey, former director of the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, on a speaking gig at Howard University, where he was paid $100,000. That's 100,000 clams, my friend, for a 12-minute speech. Now, I remember a long time ago when he gave that speech because he got heckled very badly. And that was, at the time, the news story, that Jimmy the Weasel Comey gave a speech at Howard University where he got a pretty unwelcome response from the crowd, who heckled him the entire time, where he got frustrated and went into a little bit of a diatribe about what a conversation is. And that was the news story when that video clip first aired. But now we know that there's a backstory. There always is in the District of Criminals. And now you know why I call it the District of Criminals. Because they're all connected. It's literally, that town is very much like a mob town. And the mobsters in D.C., the District of Criminals, wear suits and ties. And as many of you have heard once before, a man with a briefcase can steal a hell of a lot more money from you than a man with a gun. And that is the case in the District of Criminals. But they do far, far worse things than even, they do things that would make the Gambino crime family blush in the District of Criminals on a regular basis. So it doesn't look good for Jimmy the Weasel, and it certainly doesn't look good for the social justice warrior Judge Sullivan. Now, Judge Sullivan has got his high-priced lawyer, who I guess he thinks is going to pull his chestnuts out of the fire. But that three-judge panel, I don't think, is going to be humored at all by that move by Judge Sullivan. I think that they're going to say, we want to hear from you. Yeah, your lawyer can say whatever she wants, but we want to hear from you. We called you here. We want you to explain why you did what you did. And I'll be honest with you. I think at that hearing, I think they're going to tell him pretty much directly to dismiss the case. Or they will remove him from the case, have him removed, and they'll put in a judge who will do what you're supposed to do under the circumstances, when both the prosecution and the other side have both agreed to drop the case. There's no more conflict. They have agreed that they have no desire to pursue the case any longer from on either side. Particularly the prosecution. When the prosecution says we no longer want to continue the case, it's over. A judge doesn't get to decide. He's there to call balls and strikes. He doesn't get to make out the batting order. Only calls balls and strikes. Clearly, he's horribly misguided, and you can only attribute this to Trump derangement syndrome. As I said, it's a brain-eating disease, and clearly, Judge Sullivan's brain has been eaten away by Trump derangement syndrome. Of course, we know who Beth Wilkinson has represented, the Rotten Reverend Clinton's crooks who tried to, in fact, got away with at this point, issues regarding all those classified emails. Beth Wilkinson, this attorney, represented all these people. There's 4 or 5 of them who were involved in that, deleting the Right Reverend Clinton's emails. Cheryl Mills and several others. Now, I guess the next question that we should all be asking is exactly who is paying Beth Wilkinson's legal fee? Because she doesn't work for cheap, my friends. She is a high-dollar lawyer. I wonder if we're going to find out who Judge Sullivan is billing for her legal services. We better not find out that he's using the court's money to bring in Wilkinson. We better not find that out. But I do believe that that this 3-judge panel is going to, and it's coming up here, I guess, June 1st. That 3-judge panel is probably not going to put up with any crap. I think that they're going to demand that Judge Sullivan respond personally to their questions, not through his lawyer. And I think that regardless of what he says, when the hearing's over, he simply is going to be advised one of 2 things. Either you go back and dismiss this case, or we dismiss you and put in a judge who will follow the law and the proceedings and the procedures for these types of proceedings. I think that's what's going to happen. Although I may be an optimist. We'll find out in a couple of days. Here's a good question for you. Was Stefan Halper, the fat man, working for the Clinton campaign? Was Stefan Halper working for the Clinton campaign? For the longest time, it's been bothering me. Now, I know these son of a bitches lie like crazy. Strzok and Page and McCabe and Comey and all these guys, all these FBI people, and some DOJ people as well, have all said that they were not running informants into the Trump campaign or doing any type of investigative activity until July 31st of 2016, when they opened Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Now, up until this time, I've just believed, they all have to be lying. But the more I think about it, the more I think, that's something that would be very hard to lie about. Something that would be very hard to lie about. Because there are records when you have an informant working on a case. And there are dates on documents. There are dates on conversations with whoever that person's handler is, or whoever they're reporting to. So we get the Horowitz report, and the Horowitz report seems to confirm that. Now, I realize that the Horowitz was limited. I'm talking about I.G. Huckleberry Horowitz was limited to who he could talk to, and of course, he couldn't really prosecute anyone for lying to him. He could only refer them. So it's possible that all these people were lying. It's possible that they were able to destroy, remove, or cover up, or hide any and all documents which might have shown that. But why would all these people have lied and believed that they could cover all this up? No, and it's a big deal. And I'm starting to think that they may have been telling the truth about that to some degree. At least they have plausible deniability, because there's no paper trail. But I've been thinking lately, what if they're telling the truth? What if Halper was not working for the FBI prior to July 31st, 2016? He was certainly working for somebody, wasn't he? Wasn't doing this all on his own. He was working for somebody. Now, I think one of the most likely targets would be some intelligence agency. Could have been British intelligence, could have been Brennan, could have been something on the intelligence side. But when you look at the time frame, when this is all happening, and you look at all the other players who are being brought in at about the same time, and you look at the mission they were on, it's very much at about the same time frame with the same people that have been put into play by Perkins Coie on behalf of the Right Reverend Clinton. It's about the same time that you have Fusion GPS being brought in. Then comes Christopher Steele. Then you have all the media leaks going on with the Clinton campaign as they're pushing the fake Russian narrative. You have all these reporters, Isakov, who we now know is unofficially working for the Clinton campaign, working as a conduit, receiving information coming from the Clinton campaign. It was essentially being generated from the so-called investigations that were not actually happening. And I think that there's an outside chance. I don't think it's the best possibility. I think the best possibility is that Halper was working for one of the intelligence agencies. Maybe British intelligence, maybe the CIA. That's probably the most logical guess. But the second most likely guess would be the Clinton campaign. Alexander Down the Hatch Downer seemed to be working with Halper. Joseph Mifsud seemed to be working with Halper and Downer. Downer and Mifsud both have a connection to Hillary Clinton. And I'm wondering if Hillary either directly brought in Halper, just like with Downer and Mifsud, or whether she farmed it out to someone else. Did she actually have one of her peeps call her good friend Downer? Did she have Slick Willie call Downer? I mean, they've been friends for many years. They went to Oxford together. Been friends since their college days. The Right Reverend Clinton had dinner with Mifsud, and he claims that he's, a member of the Clinton Foundation. We know that they know each other. They were both in the plot. And Halper was right in the middle with them, in the plot with them. And they all hang out at the same place, around the same people. Is it possible that Halper was brought in, and then he brought in Downer and Mifsud? What I'm suggesting is that either the Right Reverend Clinton directly brought Halper into play, or she used her husband, Slick Willie, or she may have used her lawyer, Michael Sussmann, who we now know has admitted that he was speaking with both the FBI and the CIA in 2016. The dates, he did not give us the exact dates, but they were early summer, before Crossfire Hurricane. So I think that there's a possibility, a decent possibility, that when all these FBI guys say that they weren't running Halper prior to July 31st, and the fact that Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz was not able to find any documents or substantiate, come up with any evidence that the FBI was running informants before then, that may very, very well be true. Doesn't mean they didn't know about what was going on, because I'm sure they did. But could also mean that they're telling the truth. The fact that they weren't running, and they would know if they were doing this at the time. They think, wait a minute, if we're going to run informants, we need to have an open investigation. Yeah, but we have no reason to open an investigation. Well, we need to find one. How are we going to do that? Well, we need to bring some people into play. And then, of course, you've got Sussmann acting as an intermediary between the FBI and the CIA, all at about the same time that the Clinton campaign is bringing in Confusion GPS. And we have Misfit doing his thing. And we have Downer doing his thing. All this is happening in the early to mid-spring of 2016. It's when all these players are coming into play. All about the same time that right after the alleged hack of the DNC, happens. Then the next thing you know, we're getting all these people thrown at Papadopoulos. And these are all people who have Clinton connections. I would not be surprised to find out when Durham gets to the bottom of this thing here that the rotten reverend had a much bigger role, let's say a much bigger role in the direct activities that were going on in the spring of 2016. I would not be surprised if we learned that. I'm telling you, when I read Michael Sussmann's testimony to Congress about a week and a half ago, and he's admitting the multiple meetings he's having with the CIA and the FBI, all at this critical time when all these things are happening. He was having discussions with them. Unfortunately, in the questioning, they didn't really dig in. Now, I'm sure that's what Durham will do with Sussmann. It's what I would do. Okay, so you were having discussions with the CIA and blah, 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 and then it's like kind of let go. They seem to be more concerned that he was having the discussions than what he was having discussions about. And with FBI officials as well. So there certainly should be FBI notes on what discussions they were having, and there's probably CIA notes. And maybe that's why Durham wanted all of John Brennan's notes and emails and phone records and travel records. He's trying to find out who was running Halper. My guess is by now he's figured that out. I think he knows. And I still think the number one possibility was he was probably being run through intelligence. Could be U.S., could be British, combination. Or the second possibility, and I think is becoming an even more likely possibility, is that it could have been through the Clinton machine. Because we already know that Downer and Misfit are Clinton connected. And Halper is the guy in the middle between them two. And he certainly hangs out at the same places they hang out in. I think it's looking more and more likely that the Right Reverend Clinton was a lot more involved in this plot and directing this plot than what's being reported or has been reported at this time. I think if there's one major bombshell that is going to blow everybody away, that not too many people have considered, that most people at this point just say, well, Hillary paid for the dossier, and they leave it at that, as if that's all she was doing. She paid for the dossier, and that's all. No. No, I think she was a lot more involved. It was more than just the dossier. This was going to be what was going to win the election for her. This was the October surprise. And we all know the Right Reverend Clinton is a devious person who's a master manipulator of people. Her and her husband manipulate other people to do their dirty work. And what were these guys, Misfit, Downer, and Halper, doing? Dirty work. Who was the beneficiary? The Rotten Reverend. We're going to find out in the not too distant future. Because we're getting very close now. I predict in the next 6 to 8 weeks that Durham is going to start dropping charges on people. And I'll get into that here in just a minute. We have former Fox News reporter Adam Housley saying that there are the names to watch out for in the Spygate scandal coming up will be H.R. McMaster, Rodent Steen, and John McCain, Senator Magoo. He also says that the scandal will involve officials from both parties. Yes, of course we know that. This was a bipartisan coup. It was Republicans and Democrats trying to take down the president. I don't think that will surprise very many people. Yes, we know that Magoo played a critical role in the early stages of the coup. I knew from day one that H.R. McMaster was not a straight dealer, and I think he may have been one of the primary leakers, working actually against Trump's interest. And of course, Rodenstein. Rodenstein is the one who appointed Uncle Bob the executioner, knowing good and well everything that his scope memos were supposedly based on were bullshit. Rodenstein needs a good criminal lawyer. So Adam Housley reporting to be on the lookout for names such as McMaster, Rodenstein, and McCain. Senator Magoo. That won't surprise anyone who's been watching my videos. We've been on these characters for a very long time. Well, Rick Grennell's parting gift to the deep state are the following. It looks like he has declassified the Flynn Kislyak phone call, the transcript of the phone call, possibly those scope memos, which no one has been able to get a hold of. Nunes, Gowdy, Goodlatte, they all tried to get those scope memos. We finally did get one of them redacted. I think that, and it's being reported here, possibly there were, I believe, 3 total scope memos. Those might also be declassified now and ready for release, along with the Flynn Kislyak transcript. It's also being reported that there are documents that will be very significant that have been declassified and are ready for release, that will be very significant in understanding how intelligence was manipulated to support launching the Russia investigation. So, this was Rick Grennell's parting gift to the deep state. He declassified all these things, and now it will be up to Ratcliffe to actually release them. And I believe he will, and in very short order. Probably be the very first thing he does is release these declassified documents. So it's like a gift from Grennell to it's like a welcome gift to Ratcliffe from Grennell as well. And I expect that we're just going to get a continuation of what Rick Grennell's been doing, because I was watching that clip of Ratcliffe being sworn in, and we've been watching Ratcliffe for a very long time, and we know the kind of expressions he gets on his face. He's kind of a serious person, whatever, but I was looking at the expression on his face as he was being sworn in, and you can just look at his face, look at his eyes. That's a man who's on a mission. He knows as he's being sworn in that he's about to jump in it big time. Now, he's been on top of it since the beginning. Ratcliffe has been very good, but there's definitely a look in his eye as he was being sworn in as a man who's on a mission. He's not going there just to keep the seat warm. This is a dude who plans on getting some things done, and he knows how well Grennell has done. I think he wants to do equally well, if not better. Keep your eyes on John Ratcliffe. I think he's about ready to drop some serious bombs, you might say. And I think that these may be the first ones he drops, are the ones that Grennell has declassified and put on his desk for him. They just need release authority. And I believe that will happen very, very soon, probably before the end of the week. How many of you enjoyed that clip that you've probably seen with Trump being interviewed by Cheryl Atkinson, where he says to her, "I have a chance to break the deep state. I have a chance to break the deep state." Wow. That's, I mean, in the era of Trump, that is not that big of a deal, right? But in the larger picture, can you imagine hearing those words come out of the mouth of Barack Hussein Obama, George W. Bush, any president, Reagan even? I can't imagine any other president saying that. I mean, those are fighting words. And, well, we heard John F. Kennedy basically say a similar thing when he said, "I'd like to take the CIA and tear it up into a million pieces and, let it blow into the wind or whatever." And so Kennedy was probably the last American president to really make it publicly known that he had a real problem with the deep state. But I found that to be a very significant statement that he made, because he knew that was going to be a soundbite that was going to get a lot of immediate attention. It's a hell of a challenge to the deep state. Trump must feel he's now got the upper hand, or I don't think he would have said that. But yep, it is amazing, and yes, he is in a position to break the back of the deep state. Ultimately, though, that decision he's left with Attorney General Barr. However, I do believe that if Attorney General Barr doesn't perform, Trump will just take matters into his own hands, appoint some sort of a presidential commission or something, and he's not going to let this go, okay? As most of you know, if you've been watching my videos for a year and a half, 2 years now, you know that going back probably almost 2 years now, it's been almost 2 summers ago that I started saying people are going to jail. And I would have people in the comment section say, no, nobody ever goes to jail. And I'd point out that in Watergate, 22 people went to jail. Nixon had to resign. His vice president was thrown under the bus and caught up in a corruption scandal to force him out. The 2 attorney generals went to jail. Nixon's chief of staff and his top other 18 advisors, including his White House counsel and personal lawyer, all went to jail. A lot of high-level people went to jail. Like prison jail. G. Gordon Liddy did 5.5 years in a supermax prison. What he did paled in comparison to what Peter's been stroking us did. So yes, lots and lots of people are going to jail. Before I get to that, I should mention that we have some news coming out here that Jeff Jensen, this U.S. attorney from Missouri, who did such a bang-up job getting to the bottom of the Flynn situation in a very quick manner, has now taken up space on the 7th floor. He's now up on the 7th floor at the FBI, where all the bigwigs are. And you know what he's doing there? He's there with internal affairs. And you know what they're doing there? They're getting to the bottom of finding out who leaked the Flynn Kislyak phone call, which carries a 20-year prison sentence. Jeff Jensen, that's his #1 priority that he's been given. Find out who leaked that Flynn Kislyak phone call. And they are now up on the 7th floor, and he is with internal affairs. Now, internal affairs in the FBI is something most people in the government fear big time. It's not like the IG and all that kind of stuff. They do these in little investigations. When you get internal affairs on your ass, you've got a lot of problems, because these people take scalps. When they have to call in internal affairs, when internal affairs is called in, they never walk out without having turned up something. They always find something. And they love taking scalps. These guys are headhunters. A friend of my dad's was an FBI agent for many years. He got caught up in a scandal years before he retired, which involved FBI internal affairs. And I remember him having a conversation with my dad about how rattled and spooked the spooks get when the internal affairs guys walk in. These are some very serious individuals, and when they're called in, heads are going to roll, and they are going to get to the bottom of it. So now you have Jeff Jensen with internal affairs on the 7th floor, and they're going to find out who leaked that Flynn Kislyak phone call. And let me tell you what they're going to find. They're going to find that it wasn't just one person. They're going to find that there was many people, probably a half dozen to a dozen people, who were involved in seeing that Flynn Kislyak phone call got leaked. It wasn't just one person that said, hey, I think I'm going to leak that Flynn Kislyak phone call. No. Nothing in this coup plot was just a guy doing something here on his own and a guy over here doing something. Everything in this plot, as we can clearly see now from the evidence, everything was coordinated with a group of people. This was carefully planned and a carefully planned mission with everybody playing certain roles and everybody in cahoots. A lot of planning and coordination going on. And it all came out of the top tier. And obviously, Durham has figured out that it came from the 7th floor. They probably just don't know exactly who, or else he said, I think there was more than one person. I think there was a group of people here. Top tier people. And that's why Internal Affairs and Jeff Jensen are up on the 7th floor. And we're going to find out. It wasn't just one person, like a clapper. Here you go. No. May have been one person that physically did it, but in coordination and cooperation with a group of other people. There was a group of people involved in that. That one thing alone could send a handful of people to federal prison for a very long time, in addition to all the other things they're involved in. Keep that in mind. So like I said, a couple years ago when I was saying, hey man, a lot of people are going to go down in this thing, and I remember I would say for two reasons. Number one, this is too big to cover up. It's just too big. You can't have something like this go down and have it covered up. Now, if Trump would have lost, they probably could have covered it up. But the second reason I said why this is absolutely not going to be able to go away or be covered up, that people are going to go to jail, and lots of them, is because Trump won. And he is not going to let it go. Period. And now here we are 2 years later. We're in the final stretch. Within 6 to 8 weeks, Durham is going to start dropping charges on people. Heavy charges. Not just a few charges here and there, but some of these guys are going to be looking at a laundry list of charges and multiple counts of charges. How many counts of perjury or lying do you think that they're going to have on Comey and McCabe and Strzok and all these people? They've lied many times under oath to Congress and hearings. And let's also remember that using classification of documents to conceal a crime is in fact itself a crime. Guess who that drags in? Uncle Bob, the executioner, and the Hillary donor posse. The entire Mueller witch hunt, one of the primary things it was designed to do, was to conceal the evidence that would show what really happened. So who is going to be charged with crimes? Everyone who signed off on the Carter Page FISA warrant is looking at being charged. I believe there's 7 people on that list. Everyone who lied, perjured themselves in their testimony. And that's a lot of them. Everyone who participated in the media smear campaign. Weaponizing leaking of intelligence is a crime, especially if it's part of a larger conspiracy. Remember, all these things are part of the larger conspiracy charge. Everyone who forged documents, withheld documents, manipulated documents. Everyone who participated in the appointing of Uncle Bob, the executioner. They knew that the Trump-Russia collusion thing was a hoax, and any of those who participated in appointing Uncle Bob to investigate it are guilty of fraud. Everyone who lied on a federal affidavit. That's all the FISA warrants and every other document that they signed off on that they knew was based on lies. Everyone who misled the FISA court. Everyone who participated in the conspiracy. I think there'll be multiple waves of charges. I think the first set of charges are coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 6 to 8, top end, into July, no later than the end of July. I think the first wave will be a lot of top tier people, 2 to 3 dozen. I think there'll be a second wave. I think there'll be a third wave. I think what's all said and done, we're looking at probably 60 people, maybe more, charged with serious federal crimes. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you. Bye.